Um, the point I want to touch across, or want to get across for all of us today is to actually step beyond sort of how we've typically seen inclusion before. If I have to sketch the landscape in terms of how inclusion sits on the leadership agenda at the moment, is let's take a look at how many women we have in our leadership team, or how many, sort of what does the gender spread across the organization look like. We sometimes look at preferences. LGBTQ has come to the fore. We just had the Pride Month last month. um, and few organizations also look at age and inclusion across age groups, and especially as we start to see a younger workforce come into the market, inclusion becomes a key topic of consideration for leaderships across the world. I think the things we tend to not look at, but they have been sort of age-old challenges, is how do you include people who have very different styles of behavior and contribution in an organization. When we look at introvert versus extrovert, and how do we bring introverts into the fold of decisions that matter and their insights. These are the kind of things that we often don't talk about when it comes to inclusionary practices, but they are necessary considerations if an organization wants to has hired amazing people and wants to ensure that their contributions are taken into account. But I think when we look at sort of the landscape in the future, I think ESG, environmental, social, and governance considerations and risks are becoming top priority for all leaders. They are a conversation in the boardroom. I think 2 years ago, maybe it was an uphill climb getting the agenda discussed or become priority. It's no longer the case. And when we start to look at how the business priorities have changed, it's time to relook at the inclusion agenda through a much broader lens. If I break that down in terms of sort of what does that look like in practice in organizations that have ESG risks and have to manage them and have to embed them, it's time to look beyond sort of gender and personal preferences of people and having odd initiatives here and there to demonstrate inclusion. What the firms will require in these times to come is really aligning every team member, every stakeholder in the business to align around the environmental targets that have been set, or the community touch points every business has, and how these are taken into consideration in making business decisions. Businesses no longer will be just measured against a profit or a risk return measure. They're going to be measured against a wider a metric of success. So to round that up, I would say in terms of inclusion, it's a fantastic opportunity to create a narrative and a framework and a leadership agenda that looks at bringing the entire organization together around success matters that actually mean that the business creates true value, not just for the people within, but also for their touch points across. And also, I think if investment needs to be made in with regards to sort of inclusion and learning and practices around inclusion, I would say anything that sort of helps break down biases, any um, um, learning materials or initiatives that actually touch upon how to look at blind spots and biases. These are really the topics that are going to be of much value and will straddle and sort of inform across various initiatives when it comes to inclusion in organizations. I'll stop.